Commander Thexval pressed his 4 hands against the cold metal of the command console, feeling the vibrations from another Vorthak energy blast hitting their outer shields. The lights on Kepler Station flickered again, casting eerie shadows. Across the bridge, where officers from 12 different species worked desperately to keep their home alive. "Shield strength down to 18%, called out Crix, his blue Alterian skin glistening with sweat despite the station's failing. "Climate control." His 6 fingers danced across the communications array, sending another desperate message into the void. "Still no response from the Galactic Council, sir. I think we're the last ones left." Through the massive viewport that dominated the station's command center, Thexval could see the enemy fleet hanging in space like a collection of deadly jewels. 47 Vorthak warships formed perfect geometric patterns around Kepler Station, their hulls shifting between solid black, metal and ghostly transparency as their phase shift technology cycled. Red energy coursed along their surfaces like flowing blood, powering weapons that could crack moons in half. "How long since the Meridian colony went silent?" Thexval asked, though he already knew the answer would bring no comfort. 6 days. "Commander," replied Dr. Yelox, the station's chief medical officer. The tall, thin Servani had been working without sleep, treating refugees who had escaped from other conquered worlds. The Vorthak glass bombed the entire surface, 30 million souls gone in minutes. A small maintenance droid rolled up to Thexval's feet, its mechanical voice crackling through damaged speakers. "Commander, the fusion reactor is operating at 62% efficiency. We've rerouted power from non-essential systems, but life support is struggling to maintain atmosphere in the lower levels." Thexval knelt down to examine the little robot. Its name was Buzz, and though it was just a machine, the crew had grown attached to its cheerful personality during better times. Now even Buzz seemed subdued, its optical sensors dim with power conservation. "What about the hydroponics bays?" Thexval asked. "The Kalari families have been rationing their children's portions," Buzz reported sadly. "The younglings are getting weak. Some of the Zephyrian eggs haven't been incubating properly due to temperature fluctuations." The commander's heart sank. In the station's civilian quarters, families from across the galaxy had made their homes. Engineers from the crystalline Nexus worlds, traders from the aquatic tidal systems, even a few nomadic void walkers who rarely stayed in one place for long. All of them had children, and all of them were counting on him to find a way out of this nightmare. A new alarm began wailing, and Lieutenant Vexara rushed to her sensor station. The young Alterian's normally steady voice cracked with fear. "Commander, the Vorthak are moving into attack formation. Their flagship is powering up its primary weapon." On the main screen, the largest Vorthak vessel began to glow with increasing intensity. The ship was over 2 kilometers long, its surface covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Energy gathered at its bow like a miniature star being born. "All hands, brace for impact," Thexval announced over the station's communication system. His voice echoed through corridors where families huddled together, through workshops where mechanics tried to keep ancient equipment running, through the medical bay where Dr. Yelox tended to the wounded and the sick. The Vorthak flagship fired. A beam of pure destruction lanced across space, striking Kepler Station's shields with the force of a solar flare. The entire structure groaned and shook, metal beams creaking under stress they were never designed to handle. Emergency lights bathed everything in red as the main power grid fluctuated wildly. "Shields down to 8%, Crix shouted over the noise of failing systems. "Another hit like that and we're finished." Thexval looked around at his crew, seeing fear and determination in equal measure on their alien faces. They had been broadcasting distress calls for 3 months, pleading for help from anyone who might be listening. But the galaxy had grown silent. One by one, the great civilizations had fallen to the Vorthak war machine. The proud hegemony of Altair, crushed in a single day. The ancient collective of wisdom, their 1,000-year-old libraries turned to ash. Even the mighty Draconian Empire, with their planet-killer weapons, had surrendered after watching their homeworld split in half. "Sir," whispered a voice from behind him. Thexval turned to see young Pip, a maintenance worker barely old enough to have left her homeworld. The small, furry creature's ears drooped with exhaustion. "My little brother keeps asking when the Rescue ships are coming. What should I tell him? The commander's forearms hung limp at his sides. What could he say? That help wasn't coming, that they were all going to die in this cold metal tomb, surrounded by enemies who showed no mercy. That in a few days Kepler Station would join the growing list of places that existed only in memory. Outside, the Vorthak ships began moving again, tightening their formation like a noose. Their next attack would be the last. Captain Lee Dae-ho hung motionless in the command chair of the Iron Will, his breathing so controlled it barely registered on the ship's life support monitors. The massive Dreadnought drifted through space like a dead whale, its hull painted with experimental stealth coating that absorbed every wavelength of electromagnetic radiation the Vorthak used for scanning. The bridge was darker than a tomb. Only the faintest glow from essential displays provided any light, and even those had been dimmed to their absolute minimum. Every crew member moved with the careful precision of a surgeon, knowing that one careless bump against a console could send out an energy signature that would doom them all. "Captain," whispered Lieutenant Park Min-ho, his voice barely audible even in the silence. The young navigation officer's face was pale from weeks of stress, dark circles under his eyes from surviving on stimulants and pure determination. Gravitational. Calculations show we're riding the edge of the dead system's asteroid belt perfectly. The debris is masking our heat signature. Dae-ho nodded once, a movement so slight it wouldn't have registered on motion sensors. Through the viewport he could see nothing but empty space and distant stars. But he knew that somewhere in that darkness, 5 other human dreadnoughts were following the same impossible course, their crews enduring the same torturous conditions. Iron Will was humanity's newest warship, built in the hidden shipyards of Luna's dark side. Her hull stretched nearly 3 kilometers from bow to stern, bristling with railgun batteries and particle beam arrays that remained completely powered down. In her belly, 2,000 Marines waited in cold storage pods, their metabolism slowed, to conserve oxygen and heat. "Engineering report," Dae-ho breathed into his headset. Chief Engineer Oh-hyun came back through the comm, her voice tight with exhaustion. "Fusion reactor running at minimum output, sir. We're generating just enough power to keep life support and navigation online. The crew compartments are at 8 degrees Celsius, but we're managing. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of drifting through space like a ghost ship, following a course plotted by the finest minds at Earth Strategic Command. The human fleet had launched from different systems, taking separate routes through dead space to avoid any possibility of detection. They used the gravity wells of burned-out stars and airless planets to adjust their trajectory, never once firing their engines. "Sensor sweep incoming," announced Petty Officer Song Ji-woo from the detection station. Her fingers hovered over the emergency alert, ready to warn the crew to freeze in place. "Vorthak probe, bearing 27 Mark IV. Every person on the bridge became a statue." Dae-ho could hear his own heartbeat thundering in his ears as an invisible beam of energy passed through their ship, searching for any sign of technology or life. The stealth coating held, absorbing the scan and converting it to harmless heat that dispersed through carefully designed vents. "Clear," Song whispered after an eternity, probe moving on. In the Marine Preparation Bay 5 decks below, Colonel Kim Da-eun supervised the final equipment checks. Her soldiers worked in the dark, their movements guided by muscle memory and infrared vision enhancers. Each Marine carried a railgun that could punch through Vorthak armor, along with experimental plasma charges designed specifically for boarding operations. "Listen up," Kim said quietly to her assembled troops. They gathered around her in the darkness, 200 of Earth's finest warriors. "Intelligence says the Vorthak think like a computer program. They analyze our tactics, predict our moves, then counter them. That's how they've beaten every alien fleet so far." Sergeant Han Jae-min raised his hand. "What makes us different, Colonel?" Kim smiled grimly. "We're human. We don't think like computers. We're crazy, unpredictable, and we fight dirty when we have to. The Vorthak have never faced an enemy that changes tactics mid-battle just because it feels right." She pulled up a holographic display of Kepler Station, showing the positions of Vorthak ships. Their formation is perfect by their standards. Mathematical precision, overlapping fields of fire, Optimal spacing for mutual support. But look closer. The Marines studied the enemy positions. They've left gaps, observed Corporal Yu Sujin. Small ones, but if we came in from multiple angles... Exactly. They can't imagine anyone being stupid enough to attack through those gaps, because the math says it's suicide. But humans have been doing mathematically impossible things since we invented warfare. Back on the bridge, Communications Officer Nam Yu-jin monitored the distress calls from Kepler Station. The alien voices grew weaker with each transmission, their pleas for help becoming more desperate. She had to bite her lip to keep from responding, knowing that breaking radio silence would mean death for everyone. "Captain," she whispered, "the station's power levels are critical. I don't think they can hold out much longer." Dae-ho closed his eyes. Somewhere in that besieged station, families were huddled together in the dark, wondering if anyone in the galaxy cared enough to help them. Children were going hungry while their parents tried to stay brave. It reminded him of old stories from Earth's history, of cities under siege, of people who refused to surrender even when hope seemed lost. "All ships maintain course," he transmitted on the ultra-low frequency channel that connected the human fleet. His words would take several minutes to reach the other dreadnoughts, traveling as compressed data bursts that looked like cosmic background radiation. "We hold until the moment is right." The Iron Will continued its silent drift toward Kepler Station, carried forward by nothing more than momentum and the gravitational pull of distant stars. In a few hours, the real battle would begin. Warmaster Gorth's massive claws clicked against the crystalline command throne as he surveyed his domain of destruction. The bridge of the Death's Eclipse stretched out before him like a cathedral of war, its walls lined with trophy displays from conquered worlds, shattered alien weapons, broken crown jewels, and the last transmissions of defeated commanders played on endless loops, a symphony of victory that never grew old. The reptilian giant's scales shifted from deep purple to blood red as his mood elevated. Each color change sent ripples of excitement through the bridge crew, who had learned to read their master's emotions like a weather system. When Gorth was pleased, the entire ship hummed with efficient brutality. "Status report on the siege," Gorth commanded, his voice a low rumble that made the deck plates vibrate. Subcommander Vex Thul, a smaller Vorthak with silver scales, stepped forward with practiced precision. "Warmaster, Kepler Station's defensive grid has degraded by 73%. Their fusion reactor is operating below optimal parameters, and our energy-dampening fields have reduced their weapons' effectiveness to negligible levels." Gorth's massive head turned toward the main tactical display, where a three-dimensional representation of the battle space rotated slowly. 47 Vorthak warships hung in perfect geometric formation around the pathetic alien station. Each vessel pulsed with the distinctive red glow of phase shift technology, their hulls rippling between solid matter and pure energy. "Look at them," Gorth sneered, gesturing toward the display with one enormous claw. Huddled together like frightened animals. The Nexari commander still thinks someone will come to rescue them, such touching faith in a galaxy that has already forgotten they exist. The Warmaster stood to his full 8-foot height, his ceremonial armor catching the light from the tactical displays. Each piece of his battle gear had been forged from the hull metal of a defeated enemy flagship. The breastplate came from the Alterian Royal Navy, the shoulder guards from the Draconian Empire's mightiest dreadnought. His weapon belt held energy blades taken from the personal collections of dead alien generals. "Sir," announced the sensor operator, a nervous junior officer whose scales had turned pale gray with anxiety. "The alien station just broadcast another distress call. Same frequency, same desperate message they've been sending for weeks." Gorth's laughter was like grinding stone. "Still calling for help from the Galactic Council? Those fools don't understand that the Council died with the Meridian colony. We melted their Parliament building and their precious peacekeeping fleet in the same glorious hour." He walked to the viewport, gazing out at the siege with the satisfaction of a predator watching wounded prey. The alien station looked pathetic compared to his war fleet, a collection of metal tubes and habitation domes that had never been designed for military action. Through the transparent aluminum, he could see tiny figures moving behind the stations, Windows alien families who still believed rescue was possible. "War Master," the tactical officer called out, "our quantum scanners show internal power fluctuations on the station. Their life support systems are failing in the lower levels. We estimate complete surrender within 48 hours. "Excellent," Gorth purred. "Deploy 3 more energy-dampening buoys around their perimeter. I want their weapons completely useless before we move to the final phase." The bridge crew worked with mechanical efficiency, each officer knowing their role in the dance of destruction. The Vorthak had perfected the art of siege warfare over dozens of campaigns. First, they would surround the target with overwhelming force. Then they would systematically destroy the enemy's ability to fight back while keeping them alive long enough to broadcast their suffering to the rest of the galaxy. Finally, when resistance collapsed, they would offer a choice: surrender and become slaves or die screaming. "Have we received any response to our latest surrender terms?" Gorth asked. "The alien commander rejected our offer again," replied the communications officer. "He claims they would rather die as free beings than live as our servants." Gorth's scales darkened to deep crimson, a sign of growing anger. "Stubborn creatures. They still don't understand the mathematics of this situation. We have overwhelming technological superiority, perfect tactical positioning, and unlimited time. They have failing systems, dwindling supplies, and no hope of rescue." The main display updated to show energy readings from the Vorthak fleet. Each ship's phase shift drive glowed with contained power, ready to make the vessels intangible the moment enemy fire approached. Their weapon systems could punch through planetary shields, and their armor could regenerate damage faster than most civilizations could inflict it. "Sir," the junior sensor operator spoke up hesitantly, "I'm still detecting those gravitational anomalies in the outer system. The pattern seemed unusual." Gorth barely turned his massive head. "Space is full of gravitational anomalies, fool. Asteroid impacts, solar flares, the natural pull of planetary bodies. These primitive species see mysterious forces everywhere because they lack our advanced understanding of physics." Sub-Commander Vexthul nodded in agreement. "The alien refugees probably jettisoned some cargo pods to reduce their energy consumption. Desperate beings make desperate choices." "Precisely," Gorth agreed. "Focus on what matters. How many civilizations have tried to break our sieges in the past year?" 17 separate rescue fleets, War Master," the tactical officer reported with pride. "All destroyed with minimal casualties to our forces." "And how many of those fleets managed to land even a single shot on our vessels?" "None, sir. Our phase shift, technology and predictive targeting systems make us effectively invulnerable to conventional attacks." Gorth's satisfaction was complete. The Vorthak had spent centuries perfecting their war machine, studying the tactical patterns of every known species in the galaxy. Their computer systems could predict enemy movements with mathematical precision, countering any strategy before it could develop into a threat. "Tomorrow," he announced to his bridge crew, "we will offer the aliens one final chance to surrender. When they refuse, as they surely will, we will demonstrate why resistance to the Vorthak Empire is futile." The War Master returned to his command throne, completely confident that victory was inevitable. The first sign of the attack wasn't an explosion or an alarm. It was the sudden appearance of 6 massive shadows against the starfield, like ancient sea monsters rising from the ocean depths. Captain Lee Dae-ho's voice crackled across all frequencies with deadly calm. "All ships, weapons free, execute. Thunderstrike." The human dreadnoughts dropped their stealth coating simultaneously, revealing hulls that stretched for kilometers through space. The Iron Will, Stormbreaker, Night Fury, Steel Vengeance, Thunder's Edge, and Silent Death emerged from the void like nightmares made of metal and fury. War Master Gorth was examining a tactical display when his flagship lurched sideways with bone-jarring force. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in red as his command throne nearly toppled over. The massive reptilian's roar of confusion turned to shock as reports flooded in from across his fleet. "Impact on forward sections. Hull breach on deck 7. Through 12, screamed his damage control officer. "Whatever hit us punched straight through our armor like it was paper." "Impossible," Gorth bellowed, his scales shifting to deep black with rage. "Our sensors showed empty space. Nothing can approach without our detection grid picking it up. Lieutenant Commander Choi Soo-jin smiled grimly as she guided the storm. Breaker! Through her attack run, the Dreadnoughts' massive railguns fired again, sending tungsten projectiles screaming through space at 20% light speed. Each round carried the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon, and there wasn't a material in the galaxy that could stop them. Direct hit on the Vorthak heavy cruiser, reported her weapons officer, Lieutenant Bang Soo-hyun. Their phase shift technology is useless against solid projectiles. Soo-jin rolled her ship through a complete barrel roll, using the debris from destroyed Vorthak vessels as cover, while her particle beam arrays recharged. The human dreadnoughts moved like predators, never staying in one place long enough for the enemy to target them effectively. On the Vorthak flagship, chaos consumed the bridge. Sub-Commander Vex Thul struggled to make sense of the tactical display as red warning indicators multiplied faster than he could count them. "Sir, we're detecting 6 massive vessels of unknown configuration," he reported, his silver scales now pale with terror. "They're using primitive kinetic weapons, but the velocity is impossible. Our phase shift drives can't make us intangible against solid matter." War Master Gorth's eyes blazed with fury as he watched his perfect formation crumble. 3 of his heavy cruisers were already dead in space, their hulls cracked open like broken eggs. The aliens were using tactics he'd never seen before, splitting into pairs and attacking from multiple angles simultaneously. "All ships, concentrate fire on the lead vessel," he commanded. "Bring our plasma cannons to bear." But the human ships refused to cooperate with Vorthak battle doctrine. Captain Lee Dae-ho's Iron Will suddenly accelerated directly toward the enemy flagship, her massive engines blazing like captured stars. At the last possible moment, she rolled inverted and fired her entire broadside into Gorth's ship at point-blank range. The Death's Eclipse shuddered as tungsten rounds punched through her armor, sending shockwaves through every deck. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut to contain the damage, but the ship's perfect symmetry was broken forever. "Deploy boarding pods," Colonel Kim Da-yoon's voice echoed through the human fleet. From the bellies of the dreadnoughts, hundreds of armored figures launched into space like metallic spears. The Marines wore powered combat suits that could survive in vacuum for hours, their movements guided by built-in thrusters and magnetic grapples. Sergeant Han Jae-min led the first wave toward a crippled Vorthak destroyer. His squad moved through, space in perfect formation, their railguns ready for close combat. When they reached the enemy hull, they used shaped charges to blast through the armor plating, creating entry points that bypassed the ship's defensive systems. Inside the Vorthak vessel, the Marines moved like ghosts through corridors designed for 8-foot-tall reptilians. Their smaller size and superior training in zero-gravity combat gave them every advantage. Corporal Yu Soo-jin ducked under a Vorthak energy weapon and put 3 railgun rounds center mass into the alien warrior, her shots precise and deadly. "Bridge secured," she reported over the comm. Moving to engineering, the space battle raged for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Vorthak had built their entire war machine around predictable tactics and overwhelming technological superiority. They'd never faced an enemy that attacked with such chaotic brilliance, using inferior weapons with superior strategy. Lieutenant Commander Park Min-ho guided the Night Fury through an impossible maneuver, using the gravitational pull of Kepler, station itself to slingshot around and attack the Vorthak rearguard from an unexpected angle. His particle beams cut through 3 enemy ships in a single pass, leaving them spinning helplessly through space. "Enemy formation is collapsing," reported Communications Officer Nam Yu-jin from the Iron Will. "Multiple Vorthak vessels attempting to retreat, but our ships are too fast." Captain Lee Dae-ho watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The perfect geometric formation that had seemed so unbreakable was now a scattered mess of burning, wreckage and fleeing survivors. The Vorthak had made one critical error. They'd assumed that all intelligent species thought like they did. "All ships pursue and destroy," he commanded. "No Vorthak vessel leaves this system." As the human dreadnoughts hunted down the remaining enemy ships, the aliens trapped on Kepler Station watched in amazement through their viewports. The rescuers they'd given up hope for had arrived like avenging angels, turning certain death into impossible victory. The age of Vorthak dominance was ending, and it was ending in fire. Commander Thexval's 4 hands trembled as he watched the impossible scene unfold in Kepler Station's main docking bay. Humans in sleek black armor moved with military precision, their weapons holstered as they carried containers of food, medical supplies, and emergency power cells. After 3 months of siege and starvation, the sight of fresh rations made several. Alien children burst into tears of relief. Captain Lee Dae-ho stepped through the airlock, his combat helmet tucked under one arm. His face showed the weathered lines of a career soldier, with scars that spoke of battles fought in the darkness between stars. Behind him, more human Marines formed orderly lines, distributing supplies to families who had given up hope just hours before. "Commander Thexval," Dae-ho approached with a respectful nod. "I'm Captain Lee of the Earth Strategic Fleet. We received your distress calls. My apologies for the delay." The Nexari commander stared at the human officer with all 4 of his compound eyes. "Captain, we thought no one was coming. The Vorthak destroyed every rescue fleet that tried to reach us. Their phase shift technology, their predictive targeting systems. How did you break through?" Dae-ho's smile was sharp as a blade. "Superior technology only matters if you can use it effectively. The Vorthak made one critical mistake. They assumed everyone else thinks like they do." Dr. Yelox rushed over from the medical bay, her long Savani limbs moving with desperate urgency. "Captain, we have children suffering from malnutrition, elderly beings whose life support systems are failing, and dozens of wounded from the siege bombardments." "Already handled, Doctor," said Colonel Kim Da-eun as she supervised the unloading of medical equipment. "We brought portable life support units, emergency surgical equipment, and enough food to feed your entire population for 6 months. Our medical team is setting up a field hospital in Cargo Bay 7. Lieutenant Park Min-ho jogged over, his face bright with excitement as he clutched a communication tablet. "Sir, reports are coming in from across the galaxy. Phoenix Squadron completely destroyed the Vorthak shipyards in the Centauri system. Dragon Fleet eliminated their supply convoys near the galactic core. Tiger Squadron hit their communications relay stations in the Outer Rim." Commander Thexval's legs nearly gave out. "You mean this wasn't just a rescue mission? You've been planning a coordinated strike across multiple star systems." Captain Lee nodded grimly. "Commander, Earth has been preparing for this war for 2 years. While other civilizations fought the Vorthak directly and lost, we studied them. We analyzed every battle, every tactical formation, every technological advantage they possessed." "But how?" asked Crix, the blue-skinned Alterian communications officer. "The Vorthak conquered 47 star systems. Their military doctrine seemed perfect." Colonel Kim finished checking her tablet and looked up. "Perfect by their standards, maybe. But they think like a hive mind, following mathematical formulas and predictable patterns. Humans learned warfare from predators who had to adapt or die. We don't follow rules in battle." A small Kalari child tugged on Captain Lee's armor, holding up a drawing she'd made during the siege. It showed stick figures of her family surrounded by dark shapes, with bright stars coming to help them. Lee knelt down to accept the picture, his expression softening. "What's your name, little one?" he asked gently. "Zira," the child whispered. "Are the bad ships really gone?" "They're gone," Lee promised, "and they won't be coming back." Through the station's viewports, the evidence of human victory floated in space. Dozens of Vorthak vessels drifted as lifeless hulks, their once proud hulls cracked open by railgun fire. The geometric perfection of their blockade formation had been shattered into random debris fields. "I still don't understand, Commander," Thexval said. "The Vorthak had overwhelming numbers, superior weapons, and those phase shift drives that made them nearly untouchable." "Numbers mean nothing if you can't coordinate them," explained Lieutenant Park. "We attacked from 6 different vectors simultaneously, using kinetic weapons their phase shift technology couldn't deflect. While they tried to adapt to our tactics, we changed them again." Sergeant Han Jae-min approached, removing his helmet, to reveal a young face marked by recent combat. "Sir, we finished securing the Vorthak prisoners, Most of their crews evacuated in escape pods when they realized their ships were lost. Prisoners? Thexval was surprised. You're taking them alive? Humans don't slaughter helpless enemies, Colonel Kim replied firmly. We'll turn them over to whatever galactic authority emerges after this war. Justice, not revenge. Communications Officer Nam Yu-jin's voice crackled over the intercom system. Captain, we're receiving surrender requests from Vorthak fleets in 17 different systems. It seems word of their defeat here has spread rapidly. Captain Lee walked to the main viewport, gazing out at the wreckage of what had been the galaxy's most feared war fleet. The Vorthak Empire was built on fear and the belief that resistance was futile. Once that illusion broke, their entire power structure collapsed. More human ships emerged from the darkness beyond Kepler Station, hospital ships painted with medical crosses, cargo vessels loaded with reconstruction supplies, and escort frigates to ensure the survivors' safe passage to neutral worlds. Earth had come prepared not just for war, but for the peace that would follow. Commander, Lee said quietly, there's something else you should know. Earth has been in contact with resistance movements throughout Vorthak space. Civilizations they thought they'd crushed have been quietly organizing, waiting for the right moment to strike back. The station's communication system suddenly burst to life, with voices speaking dozens of alien languages. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Vorthak garrisons surrendering, occupied worlds declaring independence, and refugee fleets heading home to rebuild their shattered civilizations. The galaxy is free again, Thexval whispered, tears streaming down his alien features. Captain Lee placed a gentle hand on the commander's shoulder. Freedom isn't something you achieve once and keep forever. It's something you have to defend again and again, but you won't have to defend it alone anymore. As human medics tended to alien wounded and engineers worked to restore the station's systems, a new chapter began in galactic history. The age of Vorthak terror was over, ended not by superior technology or overwhelming force, but by the simple human refusal to abandon those in need. In the depths of space, more Earth fleets continued, their silent patrol, ready to answer the next call for help from anywhere in the galaxy. The end.